Tim, I am without a doubt the most excited about this episode. And obviously, we're only a few episodes in. We've had incredible people on the show so far. If you're just tuning in for the first time, I'm Marcus Murphy and this is Tim Burke. And we started a show called Agency Talk. But every single week, we bring you some really incredible person, specifically an agency owner who has done some pretty amazing things to grow and scale their agency. And I'll tell you, up until this point, I'd say this is the biggest get that we've had, Tim.
It's exciting because when you look at agencies that have not only scaled but done a great job to do it, this is gonna be a great conversation.
Yeah, and we've got a guy that rhymes with Gary Vee coming on in in one of these episodes. We've got a lot of people, and this is a very fitting person. So let me say this, Tim. I'll tell you, my week so far has been all about planning. Because one, I live in London, and for whatever reason they don't celebrate Thanksgiving here. I don't know why, but they don't do it. And so I'm missing out on some Turkey Day, and some football because I can't watch it in real time. So I can't watch the Detroit Lions absolutely throw everything away and just totally embarrass themselves. But I will say this, I have been thinking about the future. I've been thinking about big plans. I've been thinking about 2022. And I know that's probably on your minds over there at Conduit as well. And so what do you guys do, just real quick before we jump in and introduce this amazing guest? What do you guys do for the big planning stuff? Do you guys have a vision sesh?
Oh, without a doubt. And we typically start that on September 5th or the day after Labor Day. We begin to start planning toward the next year. And in some places I've been, we actually turn the calendar to the next year, right immediately after Labor Day. And the whole idea is to make sure that we get a jump early into the next year, and that January becomes that pillar, that baseline, rather than that hope and that prayer. So we can start the year off with a great year. So we've done a lot of that around here. We've also put some trees up, as you can see in the back. So the decorations are up there. I don't know what watching Man U and having a ham sandwich is like, but here in a couple of days we're gonna do the whole turkey thing. So,
well, that's exciting. Well, I'll tell you this again. Excited about this guest because you're in luck, Tim. Because this guest, if we're talking about speaking big things into reality and planning for a big year, let me tell you about this person before we introduce him. Sound good? I'm going to tell you.
Sure.
This list. I'm telling you, this is going to be insane. So today's guest hails from the Golden State, where dreams come true, everybody. And I'm talking about California, brah. Okay. This person started a $100 million agency, growing from 7 people to over 200, spread across North America. This company serviced literally household brands like Red Bull, Verizon Wireless, and a small company called Alibaba. This company has taken home some serious brass, Tim. Ready for this? Inc.'s fastest growing company. Fortune Magazine's 50 best workplaces in Southern California. That's a hard one to get. Okay. And let's not just talk about the company. Let's talk about the legend who started this thing. He's a serial entrepreneur, Tim. He's the International Business Award Entrepreneur of the Year in the field of advertising, marketing, and public relations. Forbes 30 under 30, CSQ Magazine 40 under 40, aging like fine wine, Tim. All right. He's Inc. Magazine's top 25 marketing influencers. And if that wasn't impressive enough, he somehow found time to become a pilot. Like he's flying planes and shit, Ted.
Wow.
Planes. Wow. His own plane. Okay. Today's guest is an absolute legend. He's a great friend of mine. He's the CEO of Hawke Media, the fastest growing marketing consultancy in the United States of America. Please welcome to Agency Talk, the one, the only Erik Huberman. What up, dog?
What's
Erik,
up?
welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome.
No
Now, this is a
problem.
man after my own heart because he's a pilot, so I know he can land the plane. That is
Oh my
personal.
gosh.
I love that. The man
You
can
got to be
land
able
the
to
plane.
Exactly.
I love
Got to
it.
be able to touch down.
That's right.
You know what's really interesting is you really did just take up flying, like in probably, what's it been, like a year now?
It's been 2 because I basically missed a year because of COVID. But everything, I feel like you just remove that year and a half that was there, and then it's been a year.
You know, it says a lot about you because one, before we became friends, I've always been a fan. Like I've from afar just always respected you. You're one of the first people I call when I've got a question, and so obviously having you on the show like this is just awesome. What a huge opportunity for us to have you as one of our first guests. But dude, just to talk about real quick before we jump into agency growth and every agency leader here. Why did you start flying? Like, I'm afraid of flying. So like, whenever I hear somebody, it's just like, yo, I'm going to jump into this. It took me 2 years. What made you want to jump in the cockpit and get that get that going?
Yeah, so my dad was a pilot from when I was like 8 years old, so grew up around small planes. So there was that piece that like checks the box. But really why I did it, I had thought about doing it a few times throughout growing up. And then I got scuba certified on my honeymoon and right before it, but it's a few day process. And I loved the idea of like learning something completely new that like still had repercussions for not understanding what the hell you're doing. But like, so I had to really commit. But I had to take a test and do all this stuff, which I guess for most people sounds horrible. For me, it was like fun to flex my brain in a way that was like completely outside of work and just, you know, a distraction, but still something challenging. Like I don't want to go sit still and watch Netflix. I want to like do something, but having that escape from work, I think is important. So when I finished that, I said to my wife, like, I wonder if there's something I could do like this that I wouldn't be done in 5 days. And that's when I was like, you know, flying, like I can start to study. I actually just passed my written test, which, you know, you have to learn weather patterns and how to read weather charts and everything about aeronautics and how planes fly and all the laws and rules around flying and all that stuff. And it's like, it's challenging, but super rewarding and fun. And like, I went and studied for like 3 straight days for that test. I was exhausted, but it was like, I felt like, you know, the brain's a muscle. And I felt like I had just like had a crazy workout mentally that I just learned all this stuff and put it together and got a 92 on the test and all that, which cool. I haven't said anything like that in 14 years. So, so it's that challenge that was a big part. And then you get the benefit of like, I can fly an airplane. So you get to go up and actually fly, which once you get more comfortable with it is so liberating and so fun. I'm going to be flying tonight. My first night flight is tonight.
Oh, wow. Man.
Wow. Where are you going?
Nowhere fun. I'm going to Riverside, California, but it's an uncontrolled airport. So it's going to be quiet and going to go do, I have to land the plane 10 times is one of my requirements at night. So I have to go do 10 landings tonight while it's dark out.
That's
you know, what's funny. Every time I keep meeting high capacity people like yourself, like you literally, when I talk to Tim, what's your pastime? You don't play golf. You don't do heroin. So like, what is it that takes the edge off of running a big agency?
I like how those are the two things. Golf,
right? You're either one or the other.
Yeah. What do you do with your time, your free time? What is it? What do you do? What's your flying thing?
This, I think I mentioned before, like I used to love to play golf. And when we started this agency, I stopped playing it. I haven't played since today. So that, you know, I'm going on almost 10 years, but I'm working on getting myself back into it though.
Oh, okay.
I just, going to the driving range now and get back into it. And I think I'm better equipped to play golf now today.
So the answer that you just basically said is heroin. So it's heroin then. Okay. Got it. Yeah. It's not golf for 10 years. So it must be the other way.
Hey, I have a question. Quick question for Eric.
Go ahead.
You wrote something a couple months ago on LinkedIn that I just thought was sensational. And that was a tribute to your dad. Mm-hmm. And you just mentioned him again when you were talking about the plane. And maybe we could start out by asking you, what did you learn from your dad that you've taken with you into business?
Yeah.
And then maybe conversely, what are some things you learned from your dad that maybe you decided not to bring with you?
Yeah. But I can definitely do both. Yeah, my dad, it's funny, until he passed, I didn't recognize how much of a mentor he was to me. When people would ask if I had a mentor, I'm like, no, I just have a bunch of people that I ask different questions and smart people around me. But it was definitely like, now that I still to this day go to call him when there's either a big, a really positive event, a really negative event. And it's really either business or flying. Because again, he was the other pilot that I really had that relationship with. The biggest thing he taught me business-wise that would have probably been how I would capstone this entire talk with what we prepped about before, but I'll say it now, was I'm going to turn a long story short, had basically a big problem a month into business, had an employee flake, like run to Hawaii to marry a girl and like just flake on all his work. But I had like 5 people. So like he was managing like half my business and all his clients were pissed off. Like this whole thing was like a burning disaster for me. A company that is a month old. I just hired people, had nothing in the bank, like was trying to figure it out. And I call my dad after I start to try to figure this out, just to like vent, and told him, like, spent 5 minutes diving into this story. And his response was, oh yeah, that shit happens all the time. I got to run, talk to you later, and hangs up on me. And I'm like, I'm like, my world is falling apart. And that's his fucking response.
Right.
And And it took me, I'd say 3 years for that lesson to resonate. And that's how my dad taught me. It was never like, let me teach you a lesson about how this works. It was just like that. His reactions were really where I got it. Mm-hmm. And that was like, I started to realize like we had this mindset. I think a lot of young entrepreneurs have this where it's like, if we just accomplish this, then it's all good. If we just fix this, then it'll all be good. And you learn through time that finish line never, ever, ever, ever comes.
Fact.
It doesn't exist. And you guys know this. You both run businesses, like, you know this, but it takes a while to understand that. And like, so the biggest lesson I've learned from him is like running a business is always going to be you solving the biggest problems. It means always going to be a shit show. Like, it's how it works. Like Steve Jobs, or I guess now Tim Cook, or Mark Zuckerberg, or, you know, Jeff Bezos, like all these people, they're constantly dealing with giant global economic problems. And that's just part of the job. And if you don't want to do it, there's an option. Like, fucking quit and go get a job. It's okay. If this is not what you're made of, and this is not what you want to do. And I don't mean that in a prideful way. I mean, like, if this is not like, if you don't get energy out of solving big challenges and running things, and this becomes a stressful, I hate hearing things like, you know, there's a high level of suicide in entrepreneurship. It's like, if it's going to drive you to kill yourself, don't fucking do it. You can go get a job. Like, there's no shame in that. So that was a lesson I learned from him in a lot of ways. Is like, yeah, you're always going to be dealing with this shit. And every time I called him with another thing, like, or, you know, our first lawsuit, et cetera, it's like, yeah, welcome to the party. You got money. People want it now. And they don't necessarily want it in altruistic ways all the time. They sometimes just want to try to fucking take it. Like, this is how it works. And so that lesson over and over again was great. Now, when I have friends that are starting their own businesses, I always tell them to call me the first time they get sued. And they're like, what do you mean first time? I'm like, oh yeah, you talk to any business owner that works, especially in like the more liberal states, it's coming. It's going to happen. Like, just bank on it. If you're doing well, you're going to get sued. And I went to a mediation like 5 months ago, and I told the mediator at the end, he was actually a great guy. I was like, listen, you've been great, and I hope I never see you again. And he's like, on the contrary, I hope I see you soon, because if you're doing well, you will be seeing me soon. And on top of that, I hope I get to see you for your first class action lawsuit, because that's coming too. I'm like, don't tell me that. And then I ran it by a few much more successful friends than me. They're like, oh yeah, I've had like 4 of those. It's like, I'm sorry, what? Like, even if you're doing everything completely right and you're a good person and you're running your business well, there's ambulance chasers out there. So like, anyways, that was an important lesson. It's like, this is it. I'd say one of the things I look back and laugh, because I kind of get what he was saying, but it was like such a bad lesson, was when I was getting my first job out of college, I wanted to go work in real estate and work at a real estate brokerage. And I had 2 that had both offered me a job. And I told them, like, I like both of them. One's really aggressive. The other one seems really good. But I really like the other one because it's just more ethical. And he goes, ethical? He's like, go make some fucking money and then worry about ethics. What the fuck are you talking about? It's like, I don't know if that's a good thing to tell your 21-year-old son. I didn't listen to him. I went to the ethical company, which, funny enough, was a week before the entire banking industry collapsed in the United States. And it did not work out, but I don't know that it would have worked out either way. But I actually think a little more aggressive of a culture might have been good for me that first year.
Wow.
Awesome.
What a great question to start with too. Like, I'm sitting here being like, I don't know. I wanted to talk to you about your dad. I've heard stories over the years and everything else. And obviously I was a part of that from afar. But that's fantastic. Yeah. Gosh, what a great way to start the show. I feel like we could just end it now and it would be perfect, but we still have to keep going, because I want to talk about this thing that you built. I want to talk about Hawke Media. And I think it's really crazy, because I think we have to probably start from the beginning in like an abridged way. But, you know, word on the street, before you were flying airplanes and landing 10 times in the dark. All right. Before you were on the front of GQ magazine and all those things, you worked at Starbucks and you slept on a couch, somebody else's, not your own. And so let's go from like, how the hell did you go from barista to this?
I wasn't a barista. CEO? I worked in the Starbucks, at the Starbucks.
Please explain what that means.
Yeah, so meaning like I just used I had no office or no place to go.
That's hilarious.
I lived in a friend's condo, and not next door, but around the corner was a Starbucks, and I was just getting going, and so I wasn't sure where I was going to work. And then one of my first clients asked me to work at their office, which was like a 45-minute-hour commute into East LA, which is, everybody's heard of East LA, but it's not a great place to hang out. It's not unsafe, just to be clear. It was like the industrial area that it's just like the only place to eat food there is like a Subway or a Yoshinoya Bowl or whatever it's called. So it was like just not a place that I really liked going out to. But Yeah, no, wasn't sure what my plan was going to be or how I was going to make money. So I was living with I actually moved in with that couch moving in with a friend thing happened before Hawke. It was the company before. I actually sold my t-shirt subscription company just enough to pay off all the debt I was in from 4 years of working in startups. And so this is all good. Like everyone that talks about selling companies, it's not always then like, let's go live on the beach somewhere. Like sometimes it's just like exits are most of the time not that lucrative. And so I sold this company, I pay off all my debt. And here I am like, oh shit, I have no income and I'm flat broke. I'm no longer negative, but I'm zero. So I had no idea what to do. So I ended up moving with a friend and staying there for a long time. I actually, a lot longer story, but I ended up buying the condo and taking it over after 3 years or something. So I actually ended up living there for like 8 years, but I lived on the couch, spare bedroom, then bought the thing. He moved out, took it over, and then up until a year ago. But around the corner was a Starbucks. And so I started working out of there. And then I worked in commerce 3 days a week to drive out there, which was East LA, to working out of one of my clients because he demanded it, but he gave me my own office. It was actually pretty nice. And it forced me to wake up at like 5:30 in the morning and drive out there because traffic sucks if you don't. And so I'd get out there early. But then I was like, I had so much time and I was just grinding. So I was working for him, but working out of his office. So I'd stay there all day, work on my own projects too. Then I'd work out of Starbucks. And then I started working with an incubator here called Amplify. And they basically said, hey, if you want to use a desk here too, feel free whenever. So 1 or 2 days a week, I'd work out of their office, or I'd work in the Starbucks, or I'd work down in commerce. But I was bouncing around and it was, I got an office 6 months in, but it was 6 months of doing that.
But no green apron. That's the good news.
No green
apron. Yeah. No, that's how rumors start. That's how rumors start.
I worked in a health food store when I was 16 in high school and worked hard. I worked, I think, like 20 hours a week, 25 hours a week while going to school full time and, all the other things you're doing. So I was working there, and after 6 months, I was still making minimum wage, and I was training people making $2. I was making, I think it was $6.75 was minimum wage then. And I was training people making $9 an hour. And I was like, that's weird. So I go to my GM, my boss's boss, and go, hey, what's the deal here? Turns out, long story short, my manager was taking credit for all the work I was doing. So when I was training these people, he told the boss he was training them. When I was restocking shelves, he said he had to do that and was talking me down like Erik doesn't know what he's doing. And so I realized politics work and went, fuck this. And so I quit. And that was a big incentive not to work for someone again.
Wow. And you were 16. So you started your first couple e-com businesses like right out of high school?
No, I started I did bought and sold Beanie Babies when I was 8 and made thousands of bucks as an 8-year-old. So I started really early. I mean, even at 6 years old, I decided my parents didn't need all their stuff, threw it in a trash bag, like things that I thought they didn't need, like my dad's golf balls, etc., and sold them door to door. Like I went through my neighborhood and sold their stuff door to door as a 6-year-old. And then I tried to start my first e-com company when I was 12. Wanted to start guitarmon.com, MON. And I built a e-com site on my own and went to got this was a friend taught me this. I called like Fender and Gibson and Ernie Ball and all these companies and put my voice even higher as a 12-year-old and pretended to be my own secretary. And because I didn't have a man's voice, so I pretended to be a secretary and asked for all their catalogs so I could order products from them. They all sent me their catalogs, and then they asked for my seller's permit. So what's that? So then I went to my dad and said, hey, I need this seller's permit. Can you come with me to Ventura Courthouse and get a seller's permit? He's like, yeah, I'm not getting you a fucking seller's permit. What are you talking about? And that was the end of that business. But so I had an interest in it. But no, I went into college thinking I was going to go into real estate. And I worked in a real estate office my first year. And then I sold Cutco my second year in college, which was awesome, selling door-to-door knives. I wanted to learn sales. Like I was their dream employee because I went in there like, I want to learn everything there is about selling and all the hard parts of it. And that one, I broke all their records. I ended up being their top seller, ended up getting promoted to open an office for them. And then right before I opened it in April of the next year, I got an offer to help start a storm drain filtering business my junior year in college. And I went, yep, sounds good. You're going to learn way more doing that. And ended up starting a company called Stormwater Maintenance Company with a friend. And we basically, became law in California that you had to filter your storm drains. And so we were the company that was going to make people compliant. turns out that they didn't end up enforcing it for years after that. So it was great. It was like, I remember, I'll never forget. We went to the Gold's Gym in Oxnard and I told them that they're going to have to filter their storm drains in the parking lot. And we're here to do that for them. And the manager tried to fight us in the parking lot because he thought we were con artists. And he's like, you know, slime bags, get the fuck out. And he chased us into the parking lot and he like took a swing and like all this stuff. I'm like, Jesus. Like, so it was like a perfect lesson in like cold calling and cold showing up. Like when you go through that, you don't really get shaken up. Between that and when I was selling Cutco, I went to someone's house and their dog, they told me their dog was having a little, it was uncomfortable with people. And I was like, I'm a dog person. Don't worry about it. And they're like, well, do you mind if we'll hold him on the leash, but do you mind if we walk our dog by you and just see what he does? I'm like, yeah, whatever. Just hold the leash if he's aggressive or something. They're like, cool. So they grab their dog. They walk him by and he's staring at me, growling a little bit. And then I look away because you don't stare a dog down. That's part of it. I look away and I feel his nose hit my leg. The idiot dropped the leash and the dog got out. I felt its nose hit my leg. I pulled my leg away and it got a hold of my pants and ripped my suit pants clean off me. So now here I am standing in their driveway in my underwear and they got the dog back. I was fine. My pants are gone. And I'm like, okay, so should we go inside? I got to show you some knives. And I went through the whole thing in my underwear with a suit jacket and tie and all of it on, but no pants. And at the end of it, they're like, you can now thinking back, I was 19. I had no idea what I was doing, but like thinking back, they were horrified because I could have sued them. There was so much that could have happened there. They handed me a check to replace my pants, bought no knives, which was so fucked up on their behalf. And I actually sold, 80% of the time. So like they were the minority of people that didn't buy anything, paid for my pants and asked me to leave. But once you go through that, then when you're selling, it's like, whatever.
That is so spot on though. And first of all, how do you not buy? I mean, come on.
Back, because they were, probably in their 40s. And I'm like, as now closer to that age, I'm like, if I did that to a kid, I'm buying a knife, at least something.
So I did that when I first started. I sold cable TV before there was cable TV. And you're going into people's houses trying to get them to buy something conceptual. And I think the lessons in that are perseverance. I mean, that you learn early that sales becomes a math game. Because I'm going to close, 1.5 out of every 10. I've only got 8 more houses to go, knock on before I get one. And
exactly,
there's real lessons in that, and I think that's awesome that you did that. Not so awesome.
When you don't take rejection as like a personal affront, so you end up like, okay, next, like, and getting used to that, like, and then fresh out of college when I went into real estate, I cold called 200 people a day in the worst recession since the Great Depression, saying you should sell your property. It's worth half as much, but you should sell it. You get a lot of fun phone calls with that. But you get through that and you're like, oh yeah, I'm not dead. We'll be fine. And then cold calling, there's something fun. Once you get through that, then it's kind of fun. I kind of miss the art of cold calling.
I was going to ask this question about like, what it takes to build the type of agency that you've built and the type of really successful business. But now that I listen to you and I listen to Tim and I listen to these foundational stories of just the absolute shit you guys had to go through, I'm sitting around going like, how could you not win? Right? Like you're sitting there not accepting failure. Most of the time you're just kind of moving on to the next thing. You probably have now seen it all, kind of expect things to happen and go wrong. Like no, not one time at Hawke so far have your pants been ripped off. So like today's a good day, right? Like today's a good day.
That's true. That hasn't happened. Though I've been accused of it. It hasn't happened. But that's the thing is exactly it. And I will say like, once you go through that thing, like, now at this point, it takes a lot to really like shake me because I've been through it all. Like in the pants thing aside, but like just even with Hawke, you start to realize like you look at these more senior executives and these like people that, again, once you reach your 40s and 50s, if someone has really been on a path of success that whole time, things happen at the business. We hired an amazing new COO that grew an agency already from our size to 10 times our size and came and joined us. And he came in with, all the problems that are dealing at this stage of the company. And he's like, yeah, I mean, this is great. Like, this is how it works. Like, I was like worried a little bit. Like I threw him in the deep end quick and was like, here's all the shit. And then I'm like, oh God, is this guy going to panic and go, oh my God, it's a shit show. And he's like, no, it's always a shit show. That's how this works, but we're good. Let's go.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
The one thing I want to say this, and I have a few more questions. I know Tim does too, but Hawke and just everything that you guys do, Because like what I just read was a laundry list of accolades and just the stuff I've seen, how much it's grown, how it continues to grow, how you keep bringing in really incredible executive team members who are going to like make it go even bigger. Because I know that's probably the goal to 10x that thing too, and just grow this really great company that you love and you've poured yourself into. So how do you define Hawke? Like, how do you actually define what you guys do?
Yeah, we create accessibility to great marketing for everyone. So that is their aspiration. That is what we do. But, and then the tagline also works, which is outsource CMO and marketing team. So the idea is, and where it comes from is through consulting, through building my own brands, I just found that, and we've talked about this many times, but 99% of agencies out there are completely full of shit. And the few that are good tend to really get expensive, want long contracts, high minimums, something else that makes them hard to work with. And so the end result is, if you're not a Fortune 500 that can afford an Omnicom or WPP, which is, they're arguably good, but I think there could be debated there too, but let's just assume the big guys are good. And then if you're not those companies, then you're left with everyone else, the other 99%, which is, chock full of snake oil salesmen and people that even think they know what they're doing, but nothing objectively says they're good at marketing. And so, I just got frustrated with that. I'd built and sold a couple of companies, and was helping some other brands grow. And it was like, I keep trying to find decent agencies to work with you guys, and I can't. So I'm just going to hire my own little SWAT team, but I'm going to do all the things that the right way and the way I wish they created. So like month to month wasn't really that big of a thing with agencies, 8 years ago. Everything's a la carte. We have all these different services: Facebook advertising, Google marketing, web design, fractional CMO work, etc. And we're just going to go in, decide, look at what you need, spin up exactly what you need, and then spin it up and down as you need it. Like, be nimble and flexible along the way. And again, with this really key word, which is accessibility, let's be accessible. Let's be easy to work with, nimble, flexible, cost effective, etc. But then let's create great marketing. Let's be the best at what we do. And so that's been the focus and the driver behind everything we do since the beginning.
And that is like something that, so you obviously embody that. Is that somewhere like where everybody's kind of like, they get on board with that? Are they attracted to that because that's kind of how Hawke was? How do you instill a lot of that into everybody else in the organization?
It's our stated mission statement now. So we're very blunt about it. And I will say there was a period we didn't have a mission statement. We always had core values. Our core values are get shit done, learn quickly, be cool. Like, really straightforward, easy to comprehend, easy to understand. We tried to like create more like Ivy League version of that, where we were like, and this and that, and like created this whole complex version. Nobody could fucking recite it or talk about it, including myself. It was just like, I don't remember. What was it again? So then we just went back to this because it hits it. But from a mission statement, we realized we had a lot of people that were like, yeah, but I just want to work with Nike. It's like, well, we do have them as a client, but that's not what you're here for. Like, if your desire is to just work with the best companies out there, that's not Hawke Media. Hawke Media is about removing the gatekeeper and being accessible. And so when we started stating that and started, aligning people, and they started understanding that, I will say we had some legacy people that we had never really been blunt about that would, that were against it. They left, and it was great because then we ended up with a whole new group of people and some of the other people that had been there that were aligned with that now we have a, culture that is what we stand for. And it's very, articulated, and everybody knows it. And that's why they come to work here. And there's no false expectations with it.
I think that's sensational. And one of the things you talk about is that old guard that didn't adopt and adapt, and you move those folks out or help them find a way out. And now the people that have joined you understand the mission from jump. And that to me is just, we've done a similar thing here where we've gone from, the way I would phrase it, from the factory to the lab. Yeah. And, that's a different mindset. That's a different person. That's a different culture. And, so the evolution into the lab has taken a while, and it sounds like you guys are on that similar journey where everybody in the place is aligned with the mission.
Yep. I mean, we say it up on the upfront when we're recruiting, but if somehow someone slips through the cracks and gets in without being aligned, they're out pretty quick. And, it's the whole fire fast, also quit fast. Like, if you're this place, we tell most people in our interview process, like, it is awesome if you like what we're aligned, like what we're doing, and you're aligned with what we're doing, and you're ready to work hard and get shit done and learn quickly and be cool. And all these things like resonate with you. If they don't, you're going to be fucking miserable because there's no escaping it. So so just don't take the job if that's not if it doesn't sound exciting, don't come here, is part of what we do in our interview process.
I do want to say I like the Oxnard version of your mission statement much better than the Ivy League version.
Yeah, the Oxnard version, exactly.
So, just building on that thing, which is actually interesting because I love that. I love that you've created this internal culture. But something I know about you, which I actually love about you, is one, you're obsessed about doing everything right and doing it to its full capabilities, et cetera. You're also really authentic to yourself, which obviously that comes through with your people and your mission statement and your core values that you just mentioned. In knowing that, I also know that you want to take a lot of your learnings out. And we've talked about this. I know you guys have a book coming out, which is really exciting.
Yep.
And we've talked at length about Hawke Method. So can you tell us a little bit about that and what maybe people here that are listening to this might be able to take away?
Yeah. So at this point, we've grown over 3,000 brands successfully. We've been, just had so much data and knowledge around what happens with marketing that we realize there's a lot of consistency in what works and what doesn't. And so it's not necessarily on the tactics, but the overall framework. And I had done a lot of speaking about it. I've been on stages, thanks to you, it's a few stages talking about it. And so we developed this kind of talk around the 3 principles of marketing we call the Hawke Method. And so spent a couple years putting it into a book, and that book will be coming out March 8th, but we're pre-launching it. And just like anything, we're trying to do it right. So our goal is to sell 20,000 copies before we get to March 8th and get a New York Times bestseller out of it. So yeah, hawkemethod.com, or it's on Amazon, but it's really our framework and principles around marketing and how we look at marketing. So it does go into some details so that it kind of highlights like how that translates into action, but it's really about this overall framework that should be able to, stand the test of time as well in terms of how we look at marketing. Like, if you go to college for marketing, you learn about like the 4 Ps and all these things. And it's like, I think that's a little dated and like, it's kind of helpful, but the framework we created around awareness, nurturing, and trust, and how these 3 principles really play into each other to create a solid marketing strategy, and how to look at those, I think it's really served us as a company.
So awareness, nurturing, trust is basically the 3 kind of pillar pieces there. What's really crazy is that just like 99% of people that I continue to see about agencies kind of fall within that. I agree with you. But on the marketing side, you're talking about 99.9% of most people don't know shit. Yep. Or they're following those old things. It's like, dude, I don't even want to hire anybody out of school that has a marketing degree anymore. It's like, don't tell me about Ogilvy. Like, I need you, or do you know how to run campaigns? Like, what can you do? So I think that's really interesting. I have a question for a guy like you who sits in your seat and looks at the state of marketing all the time. Could you kind of outline like what does your marketing team look like? Like who's on it? How big is it? Like what are you guys looking for in terms of marketing folks? I know it's a loaded question because I know there's like people that take care of clients.
But we're our own client too. So pretty much we drink our own punch. So it's a very large team in that sense because we have everywhere, like in terms of our marketing strategy, we have email marketer, content strategy, obviously media buying. So Facebook, Google, podcast advertising, TV, radio, tons of content creation on that side, PR, events. God, I'm blanking. We don't do SMS, but it's something people should do. We have a web team, obviously, a partnership team, all the strategic partnerships, value-added selling, that kind of thing. It's a long list, but
and
SEO, so influencer marketing, like it's literally like we keep going because like that's the thing. I think one of the reasons we've had success is like I'm always laugh about marketing agencies that don't market. It's like, so you tell everyone else they need this shit, but you don't think you need it? That's interesting. So we've always drank our own punch.
Well, I'll tell you what, I feel like we just literally have gone all over the place, from you flying planes to like how you structure it to Hawke Method to all these really great things. And I literally am sitting here every single time going, man, I could probably do a lot of those things or none of those things. Or like, I'm just going in circles sometimes in my mind. I appreciate you, man. At some point we're going to be friends. Okay. So just let me land the plane. Tim, are you ready? That was for you. Let's land this plane. Everybody here typically does probably think that way. Like if I'm an agency owner, I'm sitting here going, man, shit, I don't want to be a part of the 99%. I also like really respect this guy. I love what they've built. It sounds really big. It seems like kind of crazy. There's a lot of things along the way. There's probably things that we left out. But the one thing we always end with is like, what's the one big thing? Like, what's the one big thing? We've talked about a lot, but based on that, what is it that you feel like people could go actionably do right now in their business? They turn this thing off, take their headphones out, and they go run after something. What would be your word of advice for them?
Yeah, I'm going to go a few things. One, don't start a fucking agency if you're not a good marketer. Like that's it. You're both laughing because how many people do you know that know nothing about marketing but somehow run an agency and tell people that they know marketing?
Or they're like, yeah, I'm an agency. It's like, no, man, you build websites on Fiverr. You're not not that guy.
Listen, if they want to like pump their chest out of it a little bit and like overstate who they are, that's fine. There's salesmanship in that. And like, I don't really mind that part of it. It's more what I hate about it is people that sell brands on the fact that they know marketing and they don't, but the brand doesn't either. So they don't know how to vet them. It's almost, there's a con in there in some ways. Like you're kind of a con artist at that sense. So I get people reaching out all the time, even young people that like, the last thing I want to do is tell a 21-year-old, don't chase your dreams. But they'll reach out and be like, I want to start an agency like you. Where should I start? And it's like, well, what have you done in marketing? It's like, well, I haven't done anything yet, but I just want to start my agency. It's like, no, don't fucking do that. Because whoever gives you money is fucked. You're just screwing them because they're giving you money instead of someone that actually knows what they're doing. So, it's number one, actually be a good marketer to start an agency. Like it's important, or be surrounded by good marketers and you're the business person, whatever it is. Like, but you got to be able to provide value. Like, or the good news in a weird way is you're never going to build a big company if you can't deliver your service well. Like no big agency is built on people that don't understand marketing. It's just not going to happen. You talk about, David Ogilvy, like guy was brilliant in marketing. That's why he was able to scale this thing. And it takes both that and being able to scale a business. But I think the biggest issue when I talk about 99% of agencies is they see buzzwords. They take a Facebook blueprint class and then they start selling themselves as some marketing genius. They copy Gary Vaynerchuk videos and sell the poor local businesses that don't know better to hire them. They churn through business because they don't get any performance out of it. But to be real, you can run a 5-person agency on obscene churn because you don't have that much overhead. So it's actually a lifestyle people can live. But I think, again, from a moral and ethical standpoint, it's absolute garbage. So to me, it's like, number one, if you really want to start an agency, make sure you can deliver. And listen, if you can't right now, go work for another agency, go work in marketing, go learn. Like there's ways to do this. It's not like you're born with it. I made fun of marketing majors in college. It's not like I had some history of marketing. I just fell into it because I had to and learned the hard way with my own companies. And so that's number one. Like if I could like change the world, and this is something we've talked about, Marcus, long-term vision is to create a certification around marketers so that not everyone can just jump in, kind of like a lawyer or accountant. You need a CPA, you need the bar exam. Like I want that for marketers, because if we could just set the expectation that you at least have to have a baseline of knowledge around marketing to be an agency, I think we'd solve a lot of entrepreneurs' problems in the world.
God, it's so crazy. Not to pause, I know this is your second point of your third, but I'll tell you what, setting the baseline and also creating that thing and that benchmark for people that they have to be like, yeah, this is like a certification. This is a badge you can put on there. It's something that people are trusted. That just doesn't exist. It doesn't exist in the agency world. It doesn't exist for marketers. And I think it's a major opportunity. Huge.
Well, yeah. I mean, you to file individuals' taxes, you need to be a CPA, but I can manage $250 million in other people's money and I don't need any oversight whatsoever. Like it's kind of absurd as someone that's, usually fiscally conservative and doesn't want more regulation on that side. But in California, I think we have like 250 regulated jobs, including, as we all know, the person that cuts your hair needs a fucking license. But you don't need it to manage hundreds of millions, billions of dollars. Like it's like something's wrong here. So that goes back to like, I really think that that's one of the biggest problems in the industry is that snake oil. So like, aside from actually knowing how to do marketing, then like be client centric. I think it's, really remember that like the customer isn't always right. I think that's such a bullshit statement. There's crazy people out there. And we've generally seen about 3% of people are out of their fucking mind, and you have to kind of protect yourself there too. But 97% are great, and you need to look to serve them, and you need to really take care of your clients and need to find ways to be there for them. And if you care, I think that goes a long way. And the last one I'd say is if you're getting into it for money, you're fucked. I saw the stat. It's like only 10% of the country makes over 100 grand a year. Only 1% makes over 400 grand a year. Like if you're watching, again, the whole Lamborghini parade, out there is like a sign of wealth. We've talked about this on stage, Marcus, but I think it's so ridiculous to like a supercar is a sign of wealth. It's like a Lamborghini costs less than my lowest paid employee, like actually. And so it's like, and I've got 300 of them. So the fact that someone thinks that pulling up in that car, it's just a priorities thing. Like I'd rather invest in people than go buy that supercar. If you're like a race car driver, like I went and raced the other day, I love cars. If you're actually using it, it's one thing. If you're buying it because you think it's a thing that like it attracts a certain person, you're only attracting other idiots. I'm sorry, but the people that look up to people with Lamborghinis are not people that are on their way to success. And so I guess if that's your audience is the entrepreneur, that's one thing. But if you're actually trying to build a business, it's none of that shit.
Yeah, I love entrepreneur. I never heard that before. One of the things though that's fascinating about what you talked earlier is, that kid that developed that website about guitars and wanted to, look at Fender and look at Gibson and analyze that stuff. That says two huge things to me. And one is just the vision that you had in looking at things, not just what's in front of you, but looking at the whole context of things. The other thing is the scope. And I think, in your case, where your agency has grown, and I admire people that don't see the ceiling, and what do you do to help you, or maybe it's innate, but what do you do to make sure that ceiling doesn't exist at Hawke?
Oh, that's good.
I don't know. I think a ceiling's self-imposed. Like, I just don't. Like, it's not like I force it or I work at it. I think that, like, when I try to think of like where the cap is, I'm just looking at the next milestone and, setting that up and being like, so how do we get there? And one thing I've learned is setting the next milestone before you get to that one is super important, or you kind of get there and go, oh shit, now what?
We're here.
Yeah. But that happened to me. So 4 years in, we had a 4-year goal that we hit. And then I was like, oh wait, what do we do now? So setting that longer and longer is super important. But other than that, I think it's for me, I'm not doing this because of some finish line. And I think that finish line is always a weird one too. And once you get there, it usually moves anyways. So for me, it's more just like, what is that next phase? And that next phase hopefully will keep pushing, because that's what keeps me interested. Is like, I like the next phase, and meaning like the idea of the next phase, learning something new, trying something new. Now we're should be buying our 7th and 8th agencies by the end of the year, which I never came from M&A. I don't know the fuck I'm doing, but here we are, and it's working. And then we have our venture fund that we're now raising our second fund, which is going to be 10 times the size and is going really well. We have our financing arm. We're doing all these things because it's more, and it's reactive. It's like, oh shit, we should probably do that because that's a problem for our company and there's an opportunity there. And we do it. And then we keep growing. And then once we set those things up, then we start setting goals for them. Like, okay, so now we're doing this. What does success look like? And then once we get to those places or get close to them, we start going, okay, so what's the next phase of this now that we've reached this sort of plateau?
Yeah, that's outstanding. It really is. That's outstanding.
It makes me just feel like
it's reactive, but it's visionary reaction, and that's cool because not everybody.
It is reactive. I think that's super important because I think so many people are taught to be proactive and see around the corners and da da da. I think there's importance in that in strategy, but in action, you got to be really careful because you might if you get conceited enough to think that you're going to actually predict the fucking future. A lot of companies, including ourselves, have gotten into trouble that way, where we think our projections are so predictable, we're going to start hiring ahead of time. And then, oh shit, we missed a sales month and now we're bloated and now we're not making money and now we can't even afford to do the things we planned on doing and blah, blah, blah. And this vicious cycle that happens. I'd much rather run reactively, but very nimbly reactively, meaning like you can react like that and make changes. You can do really well.
Yeah.
Mm. Okay.
Very smart.
Well, there's like a million things here, guys. This is I said, this is why I'm excited about this. It's why I'm excited every time to talk to Erik, because it makes me want to think bigger. That's what I always take away. Oh, yeah, man. Well, I appreciate that. And we obviously appreciate you so much. So thanks for carving out a little time, dude, in between your flights and whatever you're doing tonight.
Sometimes I work too. I'm not just flying an airplane all the time.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to work a little bit. But we're just so thankful you made some time for us, man. Really, really, really are. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
I thought that was fascinating. I think there's somebody that thinks really big. It's no surprise he was, 30 under 30. I know I aspire to be 70 under 70. So that's something.
You got some time to get there, right? You're just like kind of there. Yeah. I love it too, because I think guys like him come in and they make you feel like there isn't a ceiling and that you actually, those are self-imposed. I'm going to take that away times a million, that, you only think your only limitation is your own thinking. And most of it is like, you can get as big as you want, or your thing can be as big as it wants to be. I love that it's not perfect. Doesn't sound like he built the perfect thing, but it sounds like it's helping a lot of people.
At the end of the day, it's working, and he's a driver, which is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey everybody, if you're listening to this, thank you so much for listening to this little thing that Tim and I created. If you're an agency on this podcast listening right now, go over to agency-talk.com. Check out not only this content, but the previous episodes that we've recorded, and also subscribe so you can see the new episodes that come out if you really like it. We are on Spotify, we're on iHeartRadio, we're on Apple Podcasts and all the above to take us on your journey as you build and scale your awesome agency. And until next time, thank you for listening. Thank you to my co-host and confidant, beautiful, amazing, magnanimous Tim Burke, and everybody out there in listener land. Until next time, thanks for listening to Agency Talk.